Hi, in some of the previous lectures you might have heard in-page configuration and article ID mentioned a couple of times. This lecture is going to focus on leveraging the article ID in combination, of course, with deploying purchasing options in the connector backend to define paywalls on videos. Now, we're going to use the article ID method to, in a way, mark which videos are going to be applying which purchasing options on. We're going to do this instead of binding the purchasing options directly to the URL of a video like we have done in some of the previous lectures. That means the end result of this lecture is going to be simply that we're going to have firstly a single purchase associated with this video here, and it's going to link it directly through its article ID that we're going to define. And secondly, and this is going to showcase the power of article ID actually, is that we're going to define a subscription which is going to span both of those videos here. And as you can see, what's interesting here is that these videos span different categories from the classical understanding of categories that we have used throughout the lectures. So this is a sports category here, and this is a videos category here. So that means that we're not really going to be able to recycle the same URL prefix for these videos, but instead we're going to mark them with article IDs and then link them in a subscription using that article ID. So the first thing we have to do is to go back to our source code. If we take a look at the web page which we have just seen in the browser, and if we take a look at its source code, we're going to see some of the familiar things that we have used in order to be able to deploy the paywall at all. So we firstly have the script, which is loaded. This is the player script. Secondly, there's the connector for video script. And then finally, there is also the player wrapper, which allows us to actually tell this player that when it plays this video, that there is a LaterPay Connector plugin, which can use some of its functionalities in order to display a paywall over this video. And this exactly here, the LaterPay Connector tag within the, in this case, JW player, and again, if you're using a different one of the supported players here, there's going to be a similar or same section within it as well that's going to be LaterPay Connector. Within this tag, you need to define the article ID for this particular video. Now, this article ID is going to look something like this. So we're just going to create a new line here. We're going to write article ID. And now we have to specify the value. The value for the article ID can be just about anything that you want, as long as it's consistent and as long as it's referenced from the connector backend. We're just going to name this single purchase video. Okay, so now if you have managed to define this properly, we will just have to go back to our connector backend and configure a single purchasing option to reference exactly this article ID. Just as a quick recap, so this article ID is associated with this video here. Okay, so let's go back to the connector backend here. And now let us define a single purchase. The title can be set just about anything. Let's just call it single purchase video. Title of a single purchase is not visible to the end user, so this is just for your internal reference. Match type that we have used exact path before in order to reference the exact path where the article or where the video was located. Now we're going to use the article ID that we have just specified in our source code. The article ID there was single underscore purchase underscore video. Now we can specify the price as well. Let's set the price to say €2. Pay later. And now let's save. After saving it, we can see that the single purchase has appeared. And if we would navigate back to our videos here, and if we refresh, we see that the purchase overlay has appeared for this video for which we have defined the article ID. Of course, the other one is still freely accessible, as you can see, because the video ID associated with this single purchase is not associated with the other video. Now, you might be wondering, why did we even go this route? Why did we bother defining an article ID, editing the source code? Why didn't we just deploy a library, go into our connector backend dashboard, and then just reference this video via its URL? This is a completely legit approach, and this can be done as well. For this particular scenario, that might even be more optimal because you don't have to edit the source code, you can just do everything via the configuration. However, as you will probably find yourself in real world deploying more than one website, or that is deploying more than one video and defining a paywall for more than one video, it might be quite tedious to link them all up via a URL and to create individual purchasing options for each and every one of them. So for that, bearing that in mind, it is a more convenient road to actually go with the article IDs and then associating the single purchase with those article IDs. Bear in mind a very important thing though here, that article IDs are tied together. What I mean by that is that if you would, say, define a single purchase on an article ID that's shared between these two videos, that would mean that this is kind of a packaged offer. What I mean by that is that if you would buy one of these videos, the second one or all the other ones which would be associated with the same article ID would be unlocked as well. So as an example, if we would use the single _purchase_video article ID for this video here too, we would also get a single purchasing option for this video, but if you would buy this video, then this video would be unlocked as well. This is the reason why you will probably find yourself using article ID in combination with subscriptions or time passes more often than single purchases, because this is really where article ID as an option shines. It gives you the possibility of defining a single article ID over multiple videos and then referencing all of those videos together with the connector backend and defining a subscription purchasing option there in a more automated and a seamless way. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So let's say that we want to define a subscription for this video here and this video here as well. That is going to be, say, a 1 month subscription, and we want it to, as mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, span different categories. So not just the videos category, but also the sports category. The only thing we would need to do, of course, is, and you're guessing this already, we will have to add an article ID here, which would be referenced directly with that subscription. However, we have a little problem here. And the little problem is that this video here is already associated with an article ID. And that is the article ID associated to the single purchase. So what can we do there? We are going to be using multiple article IDs for a single video. Perhaps this sounds a little bit too complicated for you now. Let's just start with defining an article ID for a subscription for this video here. And then we're going to move on to video number 2. So let's open the source code for this video here. And we see that it looks fairly similar to what we had at the beginning of the video where we have defined the single purchase already. And let's do the same thing. So let's define a article ID. And now if we would use the same article ID, then we would have the same single purchase option appear there, and then we would be able to package the two videos together. However, we don't want this. We actually want to have a separate article ID here that we can use to reference the subscription payment option there. So let's call it sports subscription, for example. Let's just take this article ID, let's copy it. Now make sure to propagate these changes to your server, and then we can move back to our connector backend. And if we go now to subscriptions, and if we click on the plus sign, we can add a new subscription here. Now this new subscription is going to have we're going to have to give it some name that is visible to the end user as well. So let's call the title Sports Videos. Let's now put the description something as well like subscribe to all the sports videos. And we have to reference the article ID, which as you have just seen now, is called Sports Subscription. Let's set the validity period. We said it's going to be a 1-month subscription, and let's set the price to say 10 euros, for example. Again, subscriptions can only be paid now, so we can just save this, and you see that the subscription has been added. Okay, now we can test our assumptions here to see whether this video works. So if we refresh here, we'll see that only the single purchase is displaying because we haven't added this article ID yet for the subscriptions. However, football news subscription is already here, so we can see we can now subscribe for 10 euros. So this is what we wanted to achieve with the article ID. So you understand now that basically whichever article you add this article ID to, and you can automate this as well if you're producing many articles and many videos. So whichever video you would associate with this particular article ID, it will automatically display the subscription option, and it will automatically be captured in this paywall. So that's quite handy. Now let me show you another thing to conclude this lecture, and this is how you can have two of these purchasing options using the article ID on a single video. We need to, of course, go back to our source code and do some editing there. So this is how the source code currently for this video here looks like. So we only have the article ID single purchase video associated with it. So I just mentioned moments ago that if you want to associate it with any video with this subscription, you need to add this article ID. However, we can have multiple article IDs per video by means of associating it in a JSON array. A JSON array usually looks something like this. So you would have these square brackets and you would have some values in there separated with a comma. So we can just replicate this structure here. So we can open a square bracket, name the first article ID single purchase video, add a comma, name the second, which is sports subscription, close the comma, close the square brackets, and of course we need to add the comma at the end because this is what JSON demands of us if there's a value afterwards. Okay, now you need to save this and make sure you propagate it back to your server so that it can work. So if we now just shortly go back to our video here, and if we refresh, we're gonna see that the subscription has been added. So that's what we wanted to have as an outcome of this lecture. So remember, this video here has two article IDs, as we have seen in the source code here. There are two article IDs added to it, and of course each article ID corresponds to one single purchasing option. So we have both of them referenced here, and this one has only the subscription article ID, which references the subscription purchasing option.